Hey, so you may have seen an announcement, an articulation today by PayPal saying something to the effect, if you're on Magento 1, you have to move to Magento 2 by the end of June. And that's not accurate. It's not true. Let's walk through what's really going on here, right? If you look at what they say, you get halfway through down the page of what they're talking about, and they've sent an email of the similar dynamic to a whole bunch of the folks that are using the PayPal module for Magento 1. They're saying, you got to move because they get down to the part where they talk about PCI compliance. And in PCI compliance, in the standard, it says that the vendor will provide patches and you have to deploy the patches. Basically, you have to keep your code updated. Now, I want you to think about this from a different perspective. For just a second, I want you to imagine that you wrote your own homegrown e-commerce cart. How would you be PCI compliant? Well, you would have to keep your software updated. Well, what does that mean? It means that when you do a quarterly scans done by companies like TrustWave, where they scan the code to make sure that there's no vulnerabilities, that you would pass the scan. That's what it means to be PCI compliant, that you pass the scan. And if there's an issue, you have to go back to the vendor and you have to say, I need the patch, I need to deploy the patch, especially if they've already published one. But if you were writing your own custom homegrown solution, you would get the note and then you'd say, okay, I got to go patch that issue. And as long as you stay patched, you'll be fine. So what is it about Magento 1 that suddenly you say, oh, no, it's dead? It's because of an assumption. And the assumption is this: because Magento and Adobe have said that Magento 1 will reach end of life by the end of June, they're making the assumption that no other patches will be provided by anyone. Now, because of the way it's written, PCI standards, it says the vendor. Well, of course, the vendor, because in the old days, that's how software worked. There was a vendor for a piece of software. But Magento, the community edition, is open source, which means it could be any vendor. If any vendor patches the software. So we started getting on the phone. We talked with people like Stripe, but we also talked with people like TrustWave. We talked to people like Amex and Authorize.net, and we said, let me ask you a question. Is there a scan that we don't know about that is suddenly going to find the Magento 1 codebase and say, because it's Magento 1, boom, game over, you fail the scan? And everyone's like, no, that's not what's going on. Well, all we're saying is if you don't get a patch and you don't keep the software current, you could have a vulnerability and then you could get fines. And we go, oh, we get that. We understand that. It's why at Nexus we created Safe Harbor. The Nexus Safe Harbor program is specifically designed to give you those patches. We'll give you the patch so that when the scan comes through and runs it, it'll be fine. And if the scan is fine, as far as we've understood from TrustWave, if the scan passes, you're still PCI compliant, which means whether it's your own custom code, whether it's Magento 1 or anything else, if the scan passes, you can still take payments. So Visa said in April, you gotta move to Magento 2. PayPal, just weeks before the end date, says you gotta move to Magento 2. And of course, the Magento official announcement is you gotta move to Magento 2. And you know what? I totally get it. Magento, PayPal, Visa, these are organizations that are really working hard to make sure that you move to Magento 2 because they want you on Magento 2, especially Magento. But that doesn't mean that they're in line with what's best for you. So I guess the only thing I'd tell you is the Nexus Safe Harbor platform is designed so that you don't have to make a decision in a rush in the last set of weeks and get potentially gouged for hundreds of thousands of dollars of making a move to Magento 2 with the hope that you'll hit the timeline and that your store will still be functioning and that you'll have a limited amount of downtime. That's a lot of ifs, and ifs to chain up together. We will be delivering patches so that you can run on Magento 1. Not forever. We want to just give you the time and the cushion so you can evaluate your other options. Make decisions slowly, carefully, and with partners. Personally, I just got to say, I just don't think that kind of messaging, right, without nuance is all that helpful. The nuance is simply this. If your software passes the scan, you will remain PCI compliant. And if you read the details, whether it's PayPal, Visa, or anyone else, they skip right over that part. They just make the assumption that if you're just on Magento 1 and Adobe doesn't give you a patch, that A, no one else will give you a patch, and B, that you will fail your PCI compliance scan, and that C, then you will get fined. That's a lot of ifs to chain up together. I wouldn't do it that way. I wouldn't see it that way. So talk to your payment gateways, talk to folks, and by all means, talk to Nexus. Give us a ring, and we're happy to talk about it with you.